This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
All right, episode 26 of the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim from Grimsforge Gaming and myself, Icy with Icyfire Gaming. How you doing, Grim?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It is a lovely sunny day today, and I'm excited to review this letter or this post from Zos about the Update 30 combat preview, they called it. So that'll be pretty cool. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's see these natch boats.
LOL. So I'll just read through and we'll go through paragraph by paragraph. So Brian Wheeler said, today we'd like to share some new features and updates coming your way in Update 30. In this update, we're focusing on some concerns regarding item set, procs, and continuing our champion system improvements, as well as several fixes for server performance and general bug/balance. You'll be able to read the full details in next week's PTS patch notes. So that's pretty nice that they're kind of looking forward to constantly improving on the champion point system, and they're looks like they're finally going to address some of the growing concerns with the proc sets. And then with the release of the PTS patch notes next week, we could probably talk about we can certainly do another episode talking about that stuff when that comes.
Yeah. I think also everybody should know we do have a lot of content creators lined up for the show. It's just between my schedule and Icy's schedule over the next couple of weeks, we had to move some things around. So we'll be reaching out to people and letting them know where and when we can get you on. We're not skipping anybody. It's just we had to move some things around our busy schedule.
Mm-hmm. So proc sets. The growing concern over the proc set meta for the past few updates has not fallen on deaf ears. We understand the frustration of feeling required to run these types of sets and fighting against them in PvP. These sets are seen as free sources of damage, healing, and survivability, all of which come with minimal trade-offs. We want these proc choices to mean something rather than just the de facto method of building a character without paying for it in some way. So I think I've been I don't want to say a proponent, but I know things like Crimson and stuff, I've always kind of felt, yeah, it's there, but I never really felt I had an issue, because if I'm running with either Papa or Emma, Papa's got corrosive armor if he's got his DK, and it's usually on a werewolf that we're fighting against that's got Crimson, and we just kind of melt him with that true damage he's doing. And then also Emma, he always runs poison damage, so when we ever came across these werewolves running Crimson, it's never really been an issue. So, and of course, whenever I'm running into these people, I'm never alone. So I know for me personally, I never had an issue fighting against, say, Crimson users, but I know even just yesterday in BGs, we before we stopped playing as a group, we ran into a 4-man Necro squad, all running Oblivion's Foe and Clown Form. Just so much toxicity and unhealthy gameplay. But at the same time, I remember, Grim, we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, where we just run a bunch of troll stuff together, and we're gonna have a blast. And I can tell you, we were miserable being on the receiving end of it, because there was nothing really we could do. But I know those guys, they were having a grand old time.
Yeah.
So I can get where Brian is saying we understand the frustration of feeling required to either, if you can't beat them, join them, that type of mindset. So any comment there, Grim?
Yeah, I think that's so much a thing in the game right now. It's as soon as you get Vatishran staff down by 5 people, then you're like rethinking your life, and you're like, man, I got to get that on my build so I can do the same thing to someone else, and or I was with one other person. I forgot who I was with. And we were running Imperial City down in the sewers, and we ran into a group of like 7 werewolves all wearing Crimson, and werewolves have plus 30% movement speed, and they got free damage going out and free heals coming in, and when they stack on top of one another, it was like there's no way we're going to even be able to kill one of the werewolves in the group without taking a metric ton of damage. And then it was like trying to evade them or get away from them was near impossible because they have major expedition at all times, basically, you know. Actually, they have their plus 30% movement speed as a werewolf, and if they happen to be using a bow, which few do, they could just dodge roll and then have major expedition on top of that. But so I think a lot of people feel like they're getting steered into having to use proc sets just to kind of compete. And so it'll be nice if I'd like to honestly see proc sets be cut, the damage output be cut by 25% to 50% in a PvP atmosphere. I don't want to affect the PvE portion. So I think the only way you do that is through Battle Spirit passive, you know, just say all damaging or healing proc sets are reduced by 25%. And there you go. That's my quick fix.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the Vadishran, I got triggered for a moment because one of those 4 Necros was running that, and I immediately got melted with the Oblivion's Foe and that thing going on me, and I'm just like, really? What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah, you can. And it's so stupid that there is no counterplay to it. Like dodge roll, get away from them, line of sight. That's what people will say. And it's like sometimes the beam goes through walls. Like, you know, like, oh, I just ran around this pillar and it didn't break the beam. Awesome. So, and the thing about it is the Vatch staff, they attached that proc to an ability that didn't initially do damage, right? It applied major breach, right, or major fracture, and applied minor magicka steel. Well, now it also does damage, and not just a little bit of damage, like a metric ton of damage. So it makes no sense, and I don't even know what the cost is on playing Elemental Drain. Is it a free ability?
Oh, it's free, all right.
Well, there you go. Like 100% free damage, free magic steel, you know, free fracture. Come on.
Yeah. So, okay, second paragraph. With that stated, in update 30, we are making all item sets that deal damage or heal scale with player stats. You will need to make a conscious build choice when looking at which item sets to include in your build, rather than simply equipping 3 proc sets for that aforementioned free damage. Damage sets will scale with spell or weapon damage, whichever is higher. Healing sets will scale with max magicka or stamina, whichever is higher. Other sets that fall outside of that functionality will likely scale with max health, as well as a handful of other unique ways. Full details about which sets scale with which stats will be displayed in the tooltips for your item sets. Okay, so that's pretty interesting, or I guess interesting, cool. I guess I'd like to see. I know we're just kind of theorizing of what the scaling is gonna look like for this. What do you think, Grim? I'm still kind of mulling it over.
So right off the bat, this part right here, damage sets will scale with spell and weapon damage, whichever is higher. Healing sets will scale with maximum magicka or stamina, whichever is higher. Other sets that fall outside that functionality will likely scale with max health. Does this mean, I don't think that they're just talking about scaling the proc sets themselves, but just scaling damage and healing in general, right?
Say that one more time, just so I hear you correctly.
So is this statement applied to everything in the game moving forward? Well, it says damage sets will scale with spell and weapon damage, whichever is higher. Healing sets will scale with max mag or stamina, whichever is higher. So I don't know. I'm a little confused. Like, take a stamina DK. Stam DKs, you could just stack weapon damage, and then your vigor ticks will be very high. your heals will be very high, right? The healing on a DK scales with your weapon damage. Is that more of a class function ability and not so much a armor set function ability? Or now when we throw armor on there, like let's say you put Draugr Hulk on your Stam DK, which has a ton of max Stam, and then you've got a weapon damage set. Are you going to see higher heals now, or
When you say a weapon damage set, are you talking about a proc set, like a weapon damage proc set, or a damage proc set?
I guess I don't know. I need to jump on the PTS tomorrow and kind of look at a couple different things, like if you're running one set that's a damage, is it a damage set that generates its own damage, or is it something like Endless Fury that generates weapon damage? And so when you're at the maximum weapon damage on Fury and you pair that with Draugr Hulk, a bunch of stamina, are you going to get really, really high tooltip heals?
So I think a good example is if we actually have a set to use. So I think, well, let's just take Icy Conjurer, right? The Ice Wraith, it does, I think currently 29,000 damage over 10 seconds or 16 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
I think because that would be considered a damage set because according to this, I think they're strictly talking about the proc sets in this case.
Okay.
So regardless of whether you're a Magicka user or a stamina user, say you have 4 or let's say 5,000, 6,000 weapon damage, you could run, well, say we'll just say 5,000 weapon damage. You could run Icy Conjurer, which is a light armor Magicka set, and still have the same tooltip as a Magicka user using, what I say, 5,000 weapon damage. A Magicka user using 5,000 spell damage. I would imagine based on the way they say it here,
Yeah.
because it sounds like they're saying, because they include that bit there, whichever is higher. So you could be a stamina person using Magicka sets and using sets that do Magicka damage, and
Yeah.
vice versa. Because
There's
I know Zos likes to be very particular and very clear on their phrasing on tooltips and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would interpret it. And Icy Conjurer being a damage proc set, can you give me like a healing proc set? Like
Earth Gore maybe.
yeah, I guess Earthgore would count. So that healing tooltip on it would either would be based on how much your max magicka or stamina. So you could have a stamina class that uses Earthgore and would still have a solid tooltip. Well, we'll just say 30k stamina. The 30k stamina tooltip or 30k stamina user would have the same Earthgore tooltip as a 30k magicka user. And by the way, this is all speculation, of course.
Yeah.
Just based on trying to interpret this paragraph here.
Yeah. I guess I'm okay. I'm just trying to think of how I would build a proc set anyways. If you put a damage proc set on, damage proc sets aren't max stat, right? And sometimes they're not even weapon damage or spell damage. It's weapon or spell critical and penetration, and then the damage, the 5-piece damage. And if you fast forward a little bit, it's a lot farther in your reading, but it's talking about the champion point system. And there's a part where they say that they're going to be adding nodes to buff heavy and light attack damage and builds. Well, if they were to leave that out and make these changes to proc sets, it would be fine. But if you're going to give them heavy and light attack buffs or ways to buff that damage, and you're going to tell me that proc sets are going to be lacking because they're not going to be, they're not going to be built like everyone else. Well, they already were like that. They didn't have max stats. They didn't have regen in them. you push higher weapon or spell damage to run a proc set, but you're lacking in the total sustain or total package. But it's the second you add the nodes that increase heavy and light attack damage, you're going to make their day. I mean, think about put a proc set, I don't care what proc set it is, on a heavy attack sorcerer and put a lightning staff in the sorcerer's hand. Lightning damage gets buffed on a heavy attack sorcerer, right? And if I have crazy high spell damage, even though I don't have max stats, my shields will be a little weaker, but I've got streak and I've got access to major mobility through my armor buff. I can heavy attack and proc people into the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's a little scary for me. It's the combination of those two. If they weren't adding those nodes, the heavy attack and light attack, because that's the answer for the proc set, whatever they're talking about adjustments, is, well, I'll just run a light attack or a heavy attack build and use these procs and I'll be fine.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, I guess, hard to say, because I know we're all just kind of speculating, and it's like, hey, we're making these changes. We don't know what the exact tooltips are going to be, so we can only just speculate. So
Yeah. Unified Gaming, Dan. Hey, it's Dan. He would be all for this because he's got his heavy attack hero, and he would be like, this is only going to make heavy attack heroes stronger. You're actually going to give me nodes in the new CP tree that's going to buff my heavy attacks, and I'm already using proc sets anyways, so thank you.
yeah, I'll save my CP comments when we get there.
Yeah.
So the last section here, the effect we expect from this will be an overall buff in PvE territory, as many players build for maximum efficiency regarding their stats. In PvP, we expect lower efficacy from item set procs, as builds for PvP typically tend to focus on several stats that will take away from the potential to deep dive into specializing into specific stats. This also means that if you opt to run a full build of proc sets, you'll be trading off a large source of stats for your build, and you'll be limited to gaining them from passives, enchants, and consumables, significantly limiting your ability to build as you could before. It's possible to get to the value of proc sets pre-update 30 if you specialize your stats for it, as well as getting higher values than before if you go all into building around their scaling. But we believe this will lead to a healthier balance of damage and healing versus the free procs you get now. I wonder how they test this in-house.
I don't know.
When they say something like, we believe this will lead to a healthier balance of damage and healing versus the free procs. Because I guess you can make some changes internally, and then, yeah, this is going to work well, theoretically.
Yeah.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall on that.
Yeah, me too. I really wish that I just wish that the damage on proc sets was cut. The damage of a proc set should not do more damage or equal to damage of your ultimate, right? It just shouldn't. It shouldn't do more damage than your ultimate. Like if I put this armor set on, every 10 seconds, I'm guaranteed more damage than what I can generate from my ultimate. That shouldn't be. And your ultimate should be the ultimate ability that you could do, or the ultimate damage that you could do, outside of comboing things together.
And also be very unique.
Yeah, absolutely. For like class diversity, whatever. But yeah, so, and I know it'll be very hard for them to go and look at every individual proc set, but if they've already got the proc set up on a certain type of scaling, unless they have all the proc sets that are in the game attached to a slider or a switch where they can just lower it lower the damage or the equation a little bit across the board, which I doubt they did. But if they did, that's smart, you know, where they could just adjust that one switch and it adjusts all the proc sets in a PvP environment. That would be great. But if you don't have that, then you should have a way to at least put a stamp as a dev, as a developer. If it falls under the proc set criteria, you put a stamp on that set, and any of the sets that have the stamp on it will be affected by the battle spirit passive. And then, there's just a real simple section in the battle spirit passive that says, tooltips on proc set items are 25% less effective in PvP environments. And that will make your PvE community super happy, because there's so many PvEers that are pissed because their proc sets are being taken away or being adjusted because of the ball baby PvP community, and why do we have to balance? Somebody actually answered this. This was one of the posts on YouTube. Why do we have to balance all proc sets because of a minority of people that are experiencing the most extreme PvP conditions with this set and find it, unbalanced? That's their mindset. That's the PvE, or the PvEers mindset, is, why should our stuff be balanced? Because you babies can't deal with this stuff, and
I think that there's a saying that the exception doesn't make the rule, but at the same time, it only takes one person to ruin it for everybody.
yeah, and so just put a stamp on these proc sets, from all the current proc sets and all the proc sets moving forward, ones that do damage or do healing, and then just put in battle spirit passive these, any ability or any armor sets or proc sets that are listed, or however you want to list it, I don't know, are 25% less effective in PvP environments, and call it a day. At the end of the day, they still have, let's look at this. Take Icy Conjurer. What was the number on Icy Conjurer that you
I
said?
think the last number I remember was like 29,000.
29,000 over how many seconds?
I forget exactly, but it's probably about somewhere between like 10, 15 seconds, something like that.
Okay.
We'll say
So
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
okay, so it's 14,500 damage on a player character, okay, with that tooltip, and it's over 10 seconds, right? Is that
I believe so. But
okay?
we can just roll with it. Yeah, we don't have
So
to be exactly 100%.
yeah, so uncrit, just they're going to have a dot hitting them for 1,450. So say 1,500 dot hitting them for the next 10 seconds, which is good pressure, a 1,500 dot when I'm using 6k weapon damage on Hulk Smash, and I put Noxious Breath on somebody, and some targets it's only hitting for 1,200 or 900. I put Venomous Claw on somebody, and the start of the claw is only 790, and then it ramps up. So it's about double the pressure of class abilities in some cases.
I wish they addressed that in terms of, why do damage proc sets do more damage than class abilities? I wish they
Yeah,
made like just a general statement like, hey, should damage proc sets be more effective than class abilities?
yeah. So that 1450, if you were to lower it by 25%, it would take you to 1,087, right? That's a little bit more in line with the damage that you're doing on your class. And so in that moment, it's only at that moment where the threshold is, where they have to decide, do I want to run a set that's going to give me regen or give me max stats so I can actually effectively maintain my armor buff, or effectively dodge, roll, and break free and stay in extended fights? or do I want to put this set on that's going to give me free damage? It's at that moment, because right now everything's more damage than that. So why would you not, and deal with the lack of sustain or deal with the lack of max stats, because most people are dying to that's one armor set doing double the damage of a class ability, maybe not double, but it's doing significantly more than a class ability. And then they pair it with a second proc set, now what's it even matter that my class damage is, only 1,000 per tick or whatever? Like, I got two proc sets that are both hitting for 1,500 every time they tick. So, um, infinitely stronger, Yeah, I would lower it by 25% or 50% across the board.
And I like that change as well, where just kind of throw it into the battle spirit, and we just kind of just nerf anything labeled a, well, I guess a damage or like a healing proc set. And I think for like a healing proc set, I would think things like Earth Gore, Sentinel, something like that. Whereas Troll King, I don't think I would consider that. I wouldn't want to consider that a like a healing tooltip, because that's just kind of a flat thing. So I wouldn't imagine seeing that on will scale off of max magic or stamina or anything like that.
Right.
But for
and that would put Eternal Vigor right there. So if you're gonna handle Troll King outside of that, right? And I think this is probably what they're working on behind the scenes, is figuring out what sets should be. We got a lot of sets right now that are not working in no proc Cyrodiil, like Eternal Vigor.
So is it actually though? Because didn't we test
if
it
it
and
is, then if it is, then Troll King is. So,
But remember when? Because I think you were wearing it, right? And I asked you to take off a piece and then see if your recoveries changed, and they did not. Or yeah, they didn't change. That was in like the first week of the no proc stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I thought I came back from it saying, from that remembering that Eternal Vigor wasn't working in Cyrodiil.
Yeah.
So, but as soon as you say, well, Troll King is kind of a conditional, 50%, and here's 900 health recovery or 1,000 health recovery. Eternal Vigor is kind of the same way. Here's a conditional thing, and also they're losing something. They lose the recoveries as soon as they fall under 50% health,
Right.
and they gain the health recovery instead. So
right, and I think since you mentioned Eternal Vigor, so between Troll King and Eternal Vigor, those just boost your recoveries. Those aren't actually a direct heal. So
yeah,
that's
that's
why I
true.
would think those would be they're still procs or conditions, but fit the they wouldn't fit the category of being a healing proc set.
Yeah. What about Juggernaut?
Juggernaut would be a proc set, because once you hit that, what is it, 50% threshold, then you get a boost of 20k health.
Yeah,
That would be
30%.
Yeah, 30% of whatever it is, or yeah, I think I would consider that is it 30%? I thought it was just 30k health. I'm pretty sure it's just like 20, not 30k, 20k health.
I think when you fall under 30% health.
Okay, yeah, when you
you
fall
get
under 30%, you get a 20k tooltip return
and 20k resistances, I
and
think, or
20k
a shield.
resistances.
A shield, yeah. Let me look it up here real quick, since
Yeah.
she's on vacation.
Yeah, I gotta figure out what she's doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure. So in that case, well, because Juggernaut, yeah, we'll say it's fall under 30% health. You get a 20k tooltip burst heal, and then also 20k resistances.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that would be a heal proc set in this case, and then the scaling would based on, since it's not max magicka, or well, I guess yeah, it would be based on your max magicka or stamina. So say I got 30k magicka, and say that's the average that most people run, I would think that with around 30k, I would get close to that same heal burst that we get now,
Yeah.
pre
Is it a
pre pre 30.
is it a full 20k heal in PvP, or is that cut in half?
It's cut in half, so it's really 10k. But in
Okay.
PvE, that would be a 20k heal.
Yeah. And so in PvP world, if we followed the 25% battle spirit thing, the 20k heal is actually only a 10k heal, and
So
it
another 50% of that is that you said 25%. So it'd be a 5k heal.
yeah,
But
which is
even then, I feel like when we put that category thing for the battle spirit, I think we should say the 25% only applies to the damage ones, not the
yeah,
healing ones.
yeah,
Because if that was the case, ain't nobody gonna run Juggernaut at all.
right,
Unless you're doing like, one of your theme builds and you're making the Juggernaut and you're gonna use the Juggernaut set. That would be
right,
the only reason. Or somebody just wants to be different.
yeah,
Whether it's viable or not is out of the question.
yeah. I could back that. I mean, heals are already cut by 50% in PvP, so no need to add any more there. Of course, somebody will, on the flip side of that, will say, well, damage is cut also. So um, I think that you would probably have to go through and adjust way too many healing sets or healing kits. Yeah. So maybe just damage. At the end of the day, the damage is the problem anyways. It's there's too much free damage, and
Mhm.
yeah.
It's I've been playing this game since September, so I think about a year and a half, right? September 2019. I don't think I've ever put together a damage proc set build, let alone felt the need to want to do that. Like even yesterday or last night when we were doing some BGs and we were getting just overwhelmed with the Oblivion's Foe clown form Necro squad with Vatashran. I was just kind of annoyed and pissed off, and I still don't feel compelled to put those sets on.
Yeah.
I like it's just something I just don't want to do because I'm like that's not really where my heart's at, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
I'll still fight them, but that's about it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just different.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all in your raising or your upbringing. If you were if you traveled around in Zergs often and built, for Zerg play or built for group play, um, then you're programmed a little differently. So, but if you're used to solo play or used to really small group play, skill-based play, you're built differently, right? Then those are two different animals. So,
Yeah. Okay. I think we've kind of beat that a little bit. Ready for the champion system?
yep.
In Update 29, we introduced the revamped champion system and indicated we would build upon it in the future. With Update 30, we are continuing our dedication to this system by adding several new slotted stars for healing and support focused builds. I like that a lot. We are also, that was my input. We also are keenly aware of the passive power this system added in the initial offering and the concerns you all have about getting optimal builds as soon as possible. So for me, I like when they mention that healing and support focused builds we're gonna get some stars that help us do that. I'm intrigued. I have no idea what they're gonna add, but I'd like to see what they're gonna do. Because right now I like the champion system the way it is. I've already got my stars, my slottables already figured out, so I'm good. But if they're gonna add some new things, yeah, I'll bite. I'll play around a little bit.
Yeah. I didn't think that it was a problem helping support and healing classes currently. I felt like especially the middle tree, if you wanted to be in the support or whatever healing portion, you go up into the top left heavy, you know. and you focus on your resistances and work your way to the top left, and you've got healing done and healing received, and you can even buff individual type heals up to 10%. And so I felt like it was good where it was at. So I'm interested to see where they go.
Yeah, because I'm not even sure. Because when I think about playing a PvP support, I guess that's the other thing, right? They say they say several new slotted stars for healing and support focused builds. So when they say it like that, I think PvP, because for PvE, I think it's kind of straightforward where you're just a buff machine. You're maintaining buffs on your team. You're maintaining debuffs on the boss or whatever. It's kind of just straightforward there. But for PvP, yeah, when you're playing like a combat support or a combat medic, for me, the things I care about are resistances. So it's basically survivability, right? Which is a form of resistances, speed, utility, and I think with the tree, we already kind of with the current CP system, we kind of already get that. I get enough, or I have damage mitigation coming from the Juggernaut passive. I've got the block more block mitigation, block reduction. I've got just more things that
Break
give me
free.
more, break free, things like that. I've got more healing potential with the left hand portion on the blue tree. I got, if I want to pick the damage mitigation nodes and the blue tree at the bottom, I could do that as well. And in terms of speed, I guess they could do more in terms of that, but even then, I still get the combat thing on the green tree, but I think that's only out of combat. So I mean, because I play PvP support all the time, and that's literally, I'll say 9 out of 10 because now I'm kind of branching out a little bit. I'm not even sure what I would even ask for at this point. They'll maybe just have a tree that gave more speed, but even then, I mean, that would probably be it. So then I won't have to run Ring of the Wild Hunt all the time. Now, I think that would be my only ask if they're gonna do something and or not change, add a support focused slottable to the system now. So
Yeah. I like that they separate healing and support. They recognize them as two separate.
two separate.
Just separate play styles, separate
Oh,
things.
yeah,
So
yeah.
a lot of people in the PvE world will say, healers are support. And it's like, yes, but there's also like your Senna, your Stam DK that's a CC machine and frontliner and buffer, and so
Yeah, yeah. To address these concerns, we are reducing the number of stages on passive stars in the Warfare and Fitness constellations by 2 more stages to a maximum of 2 stages per passive star. This will greatly lower the number of points required to get to a more optimal build in both of those constellations, while also taking some of the power out of the high-end experience. We've also added a new and final sub-constellation. Each tree can have up to 3, and the Warfare tree focused on healing, offering new slottable stars that support the healing playstyle, and added a few old favorites from the original champion system focused on heavy and light attack damage to offer some core damage bonuses for players using their basic attacks. I guess we can address that heavy light attack stuff. So from the old champion system, I know there was the I think it was the tenacity passive where you could increase the amount of resource restore that you received when you heavy attacked.
mhm.
But what was there something else that boosted your lighter heavy attack damage? I think it
Yeah,
was.
it was called heavy weapon expert or staff expert. It was
Oh, okay,
in,
okay.
yeah, and those would I think you could almost, depending on the amount of points, increase it to almost like 20 or 30% additional damage going out. So I really hope they don't match that. Think about think about a lightning staff wielding stam DK or mag DK, sorry, and they're using armaments, molten
It,
armaments.
it could be a Stam DK with a lightning staff too now.
Yeah, it could. But molten armaments does what? Like plus 50% to heavy attack damage, and you got a lightning staff on them, and then through their CP they can buff their, if they can do the same thing, up to 30% more on their heavy attack. Who cares about the other changes that they're making to proc sets? On a heavy attack lightning staff mag DK I could with molten armaments, I could just run 3 proc sets or 4 proc sets or whatever and still be fine. Melt people all day, every day. So
Now, when you say that, it sounds like based with these new changes going forward in the update 30, if you do decide to load up on a bunch of damage proc sets, and then say your champion tree is, we'll say you just focus on whatever's going to boost your heavy attack, light attack damage. I don't think you're going to be doing the same amount of damage that you think you're going to be doing, because based on what they were suggesting, if you're loading up on a bunch of damage proc sets, that scalability is not going to be anywhere close to what it is now pre-update,
yeah, that's
because
fine.
they said that if you want to achieve the same numbers on a proc set now pre-30, post-30, then you're going to have to actually invest and make the appropriate adjustments on your stats to get those numbers.
Yeah.
How easy that's going to be, that'll be, we'll have to wait and see.
So take that. Those proc set users are probably heavy attack and light attack users, anyways. You have to be by design, because otherwise you won't be able to. You don't see those people dodge rolling around all the time, and if they do, they're getting killed, right? They're getting stam checked. You don't see those type of people having unlimited resources to stealth in and out. Otherwise, they're out of resources and they're getting killed. And so those multiple proc set users have been, for the most part, light and heavy attack built. And so if you're telling me that we're going to reduce, let's put a number on it, we're going to reduce all proc set damage by 25%, but if you build your CP properly, you can still achieve the same numbers. But we're also going to give you potentially plus 10 or 20 or 30% light and heavy attack damage through CP now. Those builds are only going to get stronger.
So I will say this, though. I know you're worried, because I can tell with the light and heavy attack stuff,
No,
but
my gears are turning. I'm gonna make this guy. I'm gonna make I'm gonna make a heavy attack hero, just like Dan.
so I could almost, I'm not gonna bet on it because I don't gamble, but I can almost say that whatever these heavy attack, light attack boost numbers is gonna be, it's gonna cap at 10%. Because if you look at, I think, almost anything in the current CP tree, it stops at a 10% increase. All the
Yeah.
damage mitigations, I think almost everything goes up to 10%
So I just want to see a bare minimum 10%
increase to your
reduction.
heavy attack and light attack damages.
Well, at maximum of 10% on heavy and lights, yes, but I want to see a minimum of 10% on proc set damage. So I want to see a reduction of at least 10% on proc set damage. So that way, and it'll be in that moment that the proc sets builds that are currently out there will still be just as powerful. The dots themselves from the procs themselves will be less effective, but they're making up for that damage with the light or heavy attack CP allocation. So
Yeah. So I think what we should do is just record some of the numbers that we have now before the thing goes live,
yeah,
where we have our Icy Conjurer flat damage, whatever, Crimson and 3 more sets, so 5 sets total, whatever, and then just compare that to what it's going to be post, and then see, okay, looks like they reduced, now that they made it scalable, the base form of Icy Conjurer winds up being 25% of its damage, and then just kind of play with it from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Which is still, like we did the numbers on it. If you cut it by 25%, it's still doing as much damage as a class ability. So
yeah, so we'll have to most likely wait and see. And the last part, as always, you can also expect bug fixes and updates to existing item sets that you can read about in the PTS patch notes, along with many adjustments to AE abilities for better server performance. We hope you enjoy your time on the PTS and look forward to reading your feedback for Update 30 next week.
your
Cool.
mystery was pretty funny. As always, you can always expect bug fixes to exist. Done. Bugs to exist. Done.
Bugs, features, what's the difference nowadays?
Right.
So that concludes the message posted by our lovely Brian Wheeler at ZOS. Anything else would you like to add, Grim, before we close it out?
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything. We could just leave and be back next week.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got something, but I can't. We'll have to cut this out.
Which part out? This is all staying.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. One takes the fun take.
One takes the fun take.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't remember what I had, but it must have been important.
Must have been or must not have been.
Both.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, with that said, we'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.
See ya. You're going to say, bye-bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Rogonian.